Welcome to Curating Simple. My name is Alexis, and in this video, I'm going to be doing the first iris analysis or iridology report that I've done in a very long time. I had somebody close to me ask if I would do theirs, and I just wanted to basically give you a quick look at some of the kind of elements of an iris analysis report or an iridology report, kind of how I set it up, how I work on it, and I'm going to give you some insights into iridology and how you can read your own irises to understand more about your current condition of health. So let's get into it. Hopefully everything shows up here the way that I'm going to be working on it, and definitely leave some comments below if you have any questions. If you have ever had an iridology reading done before, sometimes that's encouraging for others to hear your experience. I think on my Linktree, I have a document that has some of my testimonials from past health coaching clients and iridology clients. So if that's something you're interested in looking at, definitely check out my Linktree in the description below. And all right, let's get into it. So over here on the right side, I have a document set up. So I have my pictures of the irises. I include the charts that I use, some information, and let's see. Yeah, some additional information down here, but in this portion of the document is where I am basically typing out what I'm seeing in the irises. And in this report, I'm also going to be including, as you see over here on the left where the cursor is, I'm going to be including photos that have the markings essentially like mapped out a little bit, pointed out. And then I'm going to be numbering them to reference over here in the document. So, okay, let's just have a little overview of these irises that you see here on the left side. So number 1, number 2, number 3, and number 4, these are the irises in the report that I'm going to be doing. Iris number 5, this is my iris. And then iris number 6, I don't remember who this was, but what you see here in all of these pictures, or these 3 people's irises, are true blue eyes, genetically blue eyes. And you might be thinking, okay, well, number 5, that's not a blue eye. There's so much brown. You definitely have brown eyes. And then in this one here, you might be thinking, oh, like that's hazel. Like I can definitely see the blue. There's some brown in there. Those are hazel eyes. And I would say that, okay, yes, they do appear to be brown and hazel. That is how they look. But genetically, there are not hazel eyes. There are blue eyes and brown eyes, and there may also be some other genetic like variations. But typically, in the average person, from person to person, you're going to see blue eyes or brown eyes. And I don't have any genetically brown eyes in this set of different irises here, but in another video, I'm sure I will show you what those would look like. So the colors of our irises tell us so much about what's going on in our lymphatic system. The lymphatic system, if you're unaware, is essentially the sewage system of the body. So cellular waste, anything really that's like trying to exit the body is going to kind of go through that lymphatic system, and ideally your kidneys are going to filter it out. The skin also helps with this. The bowels help with this a little bit too. So the lymphatic system, whatever the condition of it, that really affects the color of your iris to a great degree. So let's click on my iris here, and we'll zoom in a little bit closer so you can have a better look. And this is a really good photo that I got. It's really nice and clear. Even when you zoom in, you can see a lot of detail. So essentially, and I'll scroll to this chart here, and these are turned sideways, so just bear with me. And I don't remember if this was my left or right eye. I'd have to look at the photo when it's uncropped, and again, this chart is turned sideways, so bear with me with that. I know this is not a perfect showing of this, but this center part here, right around the pupil, we have first the stomach, and then we get into like the small intestine and the colon, part of the colon, the right side of the colon, so the ascending colon. And from what you can see by the color of my iris is that in the tissues, or interstitially around the cells in the lymphatic system, there is chronic stagnation, congestion, and acidity. So anybody that you see with hazel eyes, you're looking at some degree of this kind of lymphatic congestion within the stomach and the bowels, and so like the intestine and the colon. So because our food and everything we consume, like it's really coming through the stomach and the bowels, then it's absorbed into our system and it radiates out into the rest of our body. So in a sense, because I have this condition of congested and acidic lymphatic fluid in my stomach and my bowels, this is, what's the word I'm looking for? Polluting the rest of the tissues in my body. So it almost kind of like continues to refilter in the body if it's not dealt with promptly enough. And this would take many, many years for most people on a very particular, probably very restricted, very alkaline and cleansing diet to get this down for, like, you know, to an almost light brown or blue color. We are passing on this lymphatic waste, this sewage waste, through generations. So this is essentially generations of buildup, and it's in our tissues. This is in deep within my tissues, around my cells, and then it just kind of it starts permeating throughout the rest of the body. But because you can see this whitish green color kind of underneath, it's like being overlaid by this brown color, you know that I have genetically blue eyes. So anybody that you see with like a green color in their eyes, or like a white or a blue, even if their eyes look mostly brown, there's a very high chance, if you're looking closely enough, if you have a detailed picture like this, it'll be a lot easier to tell. But even people with like a light brown eye, there's a very, very high chance that they have genetically blue eyes. So let's just go ahead and take a look here. I think I mentioned, like, this is a chronic level. So there's different kind of terms that we use in iridology. It's pretty simple. But this would be a chronic level of congestion and stagnation in the lymphatic system. Okay, and then here in this other true blue eye, you get a completely different picture. You see a lot more black. You see a lot more dark blue. You see white. You see some little splotches of brown. These might be a little bit more orange or like amber colored. But you see this white. So this white is actually acute lymphatic stagnation in the lymphatic system, interstitially within the tissues and around the cells. So this white would be much easier to cleanse out of the body compared to this brown. But also you see that there's black here. And anywhere in the eyes where you're seeing a lot of depth, like here, a little bit over here in the skin, right immediately around the very outside rim of the iris. This is the skin. So we have the outside of our body, which is the skin. That's on the outside of the iris. And then on that innermost part is our stomach, right? And our bowels. Right in the center of our body, it's represented through this ring right around our pupil. But when you're seeing depth like this, and I'll go back to reference my eye here, you see quite a bit down here at the bottom. This is kidney area. You also see some in here, these different lacunas. Again, other terms that we use, you see some over here. And again, I don't remember if this is my left or right eye, so I can't say for sure, but I know that I've got a weak kidney. So I want to say this is my left side because the kidney will be represented in that same area. I think this was my left iris here. Yeah, and actually, yep, this one is my left iris because this is my heart area. I do know that I have a weakness, a tissue weakness in my heart. And so, okay, so when we see depth like that, when we see little black spots or these kind of like circles or holes in the iris, this represents tissue weakness. So we have kind of an overlay or a general like coloration of the eye that's primarily representing the lymphatic condition. So you see this kind of overlay of brown. That's representing the lymphatic condition in the tissues. But then the depth that you're seeing, to whatever degree you see that depth, that's representing tissue weakness. So I would say right here, whatever like organ, gland, or tissue this is, because you're seeing black, there is some amount of degenerative tissue weakness. So let me unclick that. And okay, let's see. So let's see if we can find some different weaknesses to compare. So okay, this area right up here in the upper right kind of portion of the eye here, you can see, okay, there's like some, you know, it's pretty dark. It's not as dark black as this little hole down here, but we could say that this is probably chronic. This is probably chronic weakness somewhere up in maybe the face, the head, sinuses, maybe the eye. Again, I don't remember if this is the left or right iris, so I don't want to say for sure, but when we're up in this upper region of the iris, this is, you know, we're looking more at the neck, throat, head, face, sinus, brain. This right up in here is the brain, right on top of that transverse colon. So yes, there is a gut brain connection, and you see this very clearly here on the charts. Here over on this left chart, you see the left side of the transverse colon and the left portion of the brain that's sitting right on top of it. But again, so you'll see like this is probably more of a chronic weakness. And then here next to it, this little third one, it's not as dark. It's still pretty dark, but it's not as dark. So this would maybe be more of like a subacute weakness. And then an area maybe like this kind of little sliver right here, it's a little dark, but it's not as dark as these ones. This might be something more like an acute weakness. And those acute weaknesses and those acute degrees of stagnation in the lymphatic system, these are going to be much easier to cleanse out of the body and to strengthen and to counteract and support with things like herbs and diet. And it's those subacute, chronic, and degenerative weaknesses and degrees of stagnation and congestion and acidity in the body that are going to take more time. It's going to take a lot more consistent effort, but it is possible to start bringing balance and strength back to the tissues and back to the systems in the body. Now, another thing I want to point out in my iris here, and you can see this a lot of times just having a face-to-face conversation with somebody, and it looks kind of like tiger stripes or water ripples around the eye. Sometimes you'll see them in just like kind of one area of the eye, or they'll be really prominent throughout the eye all the way around. These are nerve rings. So this shows that the nervous system is imbalanced. It can show that the nervous system is taxed, or that it's like really highly sensitive. And this can point us back to the adrenal glands. When there's nerve rings, a lot of times the adrenal glands will be weak. They will be kind of starved of energy. We really need a lot of high energy foods, which you find in raw foods primarily. They're really high in energy, and those are very supportive of the nervous system and the adrenal glands. But another thing to remember about the adrenal glands, or any of the glands in the body, the endocrine glands or the hormone glands, it's possible to support them with herbs if you find that it's necessary, if you find that you have a weakness or you have some sort of congestion or stagnation in those glands. But we want to remember that sometimes those won't be as effective in supporting the glands. Those herbs and those foods won't be as effective if we have a pituitary gland weakness. So up in here above my transverse colon, here in the brain, there's an area of the pituitary gland, and I said this was my left eye, so the pituitary is going to be more over here on the left side, more towards the center line of the body. And so these weaknesses that you see right here, I think it's this one in particular, kind of this line here, this line here, and kind of this little pocket. This is where my pituitary gland is sort of situated here in the iris. And you can see that there's a pretty chronic, maybe even some degenerative weakness there. This really affects my hormones. This really affects my menstrual cycle. This really affects my adrenal gland function. So yes, I can take herbs for adrenal gland function. I can take herbs for, thyroid if I felt I needed support for my thyroid. But if I am not supporting this pituitary gland, not much is going to happen. At first, you'll maybe feel some, improvements. But this pituitary gland is what they call like the master gland. It really controls the rest of the glands in the body, and it's kind of like the overseer. So if this one is sitting down taking a nap, it's not going to be doing a very good job of directing all the other glands throughout the body. So if you find that, yes, you're taking adrenal gland herbs, or you're doing something to support other glands in your body and they don't seem to be very effective, have a look at supporting your pituitary gland, and I think you'll find that helps a lot. Okay. And I think that's kind of a good general insight of iridology here. And there's so much more to it. This is a really in-depth kind of science and study and practice and tool that physicians can use, everyday people can use to just better understand, okay, where is my health at right now? What are the parts and the areas of my body that need the most support? And kind of what do I need to do first? When we look at our irises and we see what they're telling us, it helps us to know what's going on and how we can better support our body. We can make a better action plan that's totally tailored to our own needs and goals. So it's really neat. So let's come up here and have a look at this this individual that I'm going to be working on the report for. And I'm not done putting arrows through here. I need to put a couple more up in this area, but I'm actually going to come up here to the left iris because it's a little bit clearer and I haven't marked it out yet. So I like to set up my iris photos with this chart overlay, and I can toggle the transparency. I'm using Canva just because I use Canva for a lot of different things, like creating tons of free printables. And I actually have a free printable that talks a little bit about iridology. It's a really fun kids coloring book. And if you're interested in downloading that and printing that, whether for yourself or for your children or some other kids that maybe you know in your family or your friend group, I highly recommend checking out the link in the description box and printing that out. You can print it out at home or get it printed at FedEx and have them bind it. It's a really fun activity book for the kids. Okay, so I like to just toggle the transparency. Yes, I could put the chart side by side to the iris, but I just find this is a little bit easier. And you might be thinking, okay, well, the pupil doesn't exactly line up with the pupil on the chart. You know, these don't, it's not perfectly matched up. And what I'm going to say to that is it's okay. Really, I think what's important is that the rotation of the eye. So if you're taking a photo of your eye, you really want like the very top of your eye to be at the very top of the photo. So if you needed to rotate the photo at all to make it align with the chart properly in that sense, that's going to still give you a very accurate reading. Because even if, yes, the stomach and the bowels aren't completely overlaid here with the iris, you know that this area is the stomach and just outside is the small intestine and the colon. So you can still read it accurately. And it does take practice. So I encourage you, if you're interested in this sort of thing, do have a look at your irises. Try to get the best photos you can and use a platform like Canva, which I know that you can use for free. You don't need a subscription for it. I just happen to have one because I use it fairly often. And then once you have the chart and you're able to overlay it on top of here, then okay, so here is the pituitary gland and the pineal gland. So we know in the iris that, okay, we have the stomach here, transverse colon's going to be above here, and then right above the transverse colon, you know, this is going to be that gland area, pituitary gland and pineal gland. So even though it's up here on the iris and it's down here on the chart, you just need to do a little bit of adjustment with your eye looking at it and you'll be able to find the proper area. So let's come down here and see this lacuna here. Okay, we see for sure that it's getting here into the kidney and we see some adrenal gland here. So let's lower the transparency of this, or I guess increase the transparency. And yes, so we'll have the stomach within the, like right above this cursor area, and then kind of right on this rim around here, this is going to be part of the colon. And then yeah, just outside of that we have the adrenal gland. And on the chart, the pupil is more closely aligned to the lower part of the pupil in her iris photo. So we do have a pretty close representation and match up with the chart. We don't have to do a lot of adjusting visually to make sure that it's accurate and precise. But this weakness here, I would say that this is a subacute to chronic weakness in the adrenal gland and the kidney. And when we have an adrenal gland weakness like this, it can often suppress or diminish the function of the kidney. And the kidney won't be able to filter out the lymphatic waste as effectively. Then it begins to back up even more so into the rest of the body, so the colon, the stomach, and that's where you're seeing this brown coloration around the pupil, and it's starting to permeate out into the rest of the iris. But by looking at the outside edge of the eyes, you see that greenish, kind of gray-blue color. She has genetically blue eyes. And some might think, oh, you have beautiful hazel eyes, or your eyes are kind of, a greenish brown color. Wow, how beautiful. Yes, they are beautiful eyes. But they are not only the window to your soul, they are the window to your health. They are the window to your genetic constitution. And that's one thing I will jump on next and explain briefly. I don't think I'm going to go ahead and mark out the iris in this video because I can show you kind of what I've done on the other pupil or on the other iris. But genetic constitution. The iris fibers, when they are strong and straight, that really reflects a strong genetic constitution. I would say that this individual has a moderately strong genetic constitution. And in some areas of the body, like down in here, kind of down in that kidney area, and let's see, this would be more of like the anus, rectum, kind of like vaginal wall area. There's a little bit more genetic weakness. There's a little bit more wave or rippling and dark coloration to the iris fibers in the area where those tissues would be in her body. So, but generally speaking, like, she has pretty strong, straight iris fibers. And I think these nerve rings that kind of look like a water ripple around, that can sometimes cause the iris fibers to look wavy or buckled. But she has a pretty strong genetic constitution. And then I'll come down here to my iris here. I'll zoom in a little bit because it's actually a pretty good photo. Okay, here you see a little bit of waviness to the iris fibers. This would represent weaker genetic constitution in those tissues there. But generally speaking, throughout the iris, they're fairly straight and strong. They kind of look like strings, little fibers like of a rope. And that's actually a pretty good way to think about genetic constitution, is when those fibers are strong and straight, you have a nice, strong rope. But when they're a little bit wavier, like this iris fibers here, you have a weaker genetic constitution. It's like that rope is beginning to unravel and fray a little bit. Over here on the side is a really good visualization of that. You see those waves to the iris fibers? In those tissues, there's a weaker genetic constitution compared to, say, maybe these ones here. These ones look a little bit straighter and stronger. Yes, there's some acute lymphatic congestion. You see that white kind of overlay, but these tissues are much weaker genetically. And it's those weaker genetics in certain areas of our body. Sometimes you'll see this kind of throughout the iris, which would be throughout the body. You just have a weaker genetic constitution. When that's the case, you are more easily impacted by even lower levels of lymphatic congestion. So this acute lymphatic congestion could actually be really impactful to this individual in certain parts of their body and the system and tissues overall. Whereas, and some people, oftentimes, it's a lot of times that you'll see an iris like this. It's a nice blue eye. There's just, some acute or subacute kind of yellowish lymphatic congestion in areas of the body or the iris, but they are in crippling pain. They have chronic conditions, and it's because of that genetic constitution being weaker. They're more sensitive to those even low levels of acidity in the body and stagnation, whereas in an iris like mine or an individual like me, where I have pretty strong genetics in most of my body's tissues, genetically I'm pretty strong. My body is able to tolerate and withstand and put up with that higher level of acidity in the body. It's not ideal. It's not always amazing, I'll tell you that, but I'm not in crippling pain. And it's because I have stronger genetics. So that more intense acidity in the body, I'm just able to tolerate it better than somebody who might have weaker genetic constitution. Before I go, I want to give a big thank you to everyone who clicked on this video and watched through to the end. Iridology has played a big part in my own holistic health journey, in my lifestyle, my career, and even in my spiritual walk. I hope that this video was insightful and helpful, maybe a good introduction for you if you're just learning about iridology. And if you'd like to learn more, please do consider subscribing to my channel. I intend to post more iridology videos, as well as other holistic health and detox videos, and all kinds of videos regarding a balanced, fulfilling lifestyle. That's what I'm into. I aim to post weekly or bi-weekly, as consistently as I can. But being a busy mom of two, I don't always get around to doing that. And that's another reason I'm not currently doing iridology readings and reports and analysis. I just don't always have the time for it. But I think by posting these videos, you can learn how to utilize iridology yourself. And this will be a tool and a skill that you will have in your tool belt, in your toolbox for the rest of your life. And you'll be able to help other people with even just a basic understanding of iridology principles and kind of terminology, I guess. So thanks for watching. You will see me in a future video. Can you say bye-bye? Bye. What about a kiss? Little kiss. Little kiss. Dite beso? Beso. Is that what we're gonna get? Beso? Here, try this side. Ready? Beso. Good job. Thank you. Take care.